Sound check. 1 2 1 2. Sound check. And make sure our sound is working on YouTube before we go everywhere else. Looks like it is. Going live over here. Live over here. And we'll wait for the live to pop up here. Start there. And we will start here. Live is in on here. I think we're live here. Let's make sure our video shows. Live. All right, LinkedIn, are we on? Yes, and yes. Sorry, we got everybody in. So we're gonna get started in about 30 seconds, everybody. You already knew this topic was coming when I was doing my live. One of my lives last week, I mentioned something about this and somebody said, "Oh, well, can you talk about that?" And I said, "Sure. I've talked about this in the past. It's not a new topic for me, but I will get into it and I'll explain it in full. Everybody's going to understand exactly where I stand, why I stand there, and where it comes from as we get into this. I didn't know that this was news to any of you. It's 2024, damn near 2025. I don't know why this is news to anybody, but if it is, we're going to make sure everybody understands it today. So, topic here today is why Black Lives Matter. I don't care what we're talking about. We're talking about the hashtag, the organization, the movement. If you want to be generous and call it a movement, whatever way you want to describe it, I'm going to tell you why the entire thing was a scam and why it was trash. It was trash from the beginning, but I'm going to explain how it became even more trash as it got more attention and as it got more. Actually, we got to say it got momentum. So at one point, it was actually a movement. It's not a movement anymore. It wasn't a movement before that, but at one point, it did have a lot of attention, a lot of momentum. I'm going to explain why it was trash, how it became trash, what you need to understand about this. Even if you're not Black, you should understand it. Actually, if you're not Black, you should understand it the most. If you are not Black, listening to this, you need to hear this more than even the Black people need to hear it. Actually, no, I'll say equally as much as the Black people need to hear it because it was used as an offensive weapon against people who were not Black, generally white people in America specifically. But we're going to get into all of that here today. So let me introduce myself first for those who don't know me. My name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day, former 9-year pro athlete, author, 35 books on 4 TEDx talks, created this brand called Work on Your Game. People who work with us, when we ask them, what is it that you like about working with me? They say, Dre, you get straight to the point. You're no fluff. You're no BS. You don't sugarcoat things. And we just get straight into it. And I love your direct style of delivery. So if you like working with people who are like that when it comes to your personal development, your professional development, your business, your mindset, etc., then just go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link is in my bio or in my profile or in the pin comment, whichever app you're watching me on. We're on several different apps right now. We're on 7 different platforms. With that said, let me speak on that. Any of you, whatever platform you're following me on, if you're only following me in one place, please follow me in a different place in addition to the one you're in. So if you're on, so let me tell you every app I'm streaming on right now while I'm talking. So I'm on YouTube, I'm on Rumble, I'm on X, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok. I believe that's 7. So I'm on 7 different platforms right now. 7, not several, 7. Make sure you follow me in more than one place. If you're on TikTok, for example, subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Instagram. If you use LinkedIn or Facebook, make sure you follow me in more than one place because anything can happen on any one of these apps. Hacks, blockages, etc. The app could go away. Make sure you follow me in more than one place. So just in case you don't see me anymore on the app, it does not mean that I stopped publishing as long as I'm still alive. But other than that, I am still publishing. Just make sure you can find me in more than one place. So with all that said, let's get into this topic here today. And I don't know if Brittany is in here yet, but we already got a person that we got to kick out of here who's trying to spam my comments. You got to get out of here. All right. So Brittany, I don't know if I saw you anymore. I mean, if I saw you yet this morning, but if you're in here, let me know. I will address all comments and questions at the end. So if you have a comment or question, you can post it while I'm speaking on probably 6 of these. If you're on TikTok and you want me to actually see your comment, you might want to hold it until I get to the end so I can actually see it, because I might not see it if you post it while I'm talking, because a lot of notifications pop up while I'm talking on TikTok specifically. All the other ones, I can pretty much scroll all the way to the top. But TikTok, if so many notifications come through, if I try to scroll up, it cuts it off because there's so many. So anyway, let's get into this. Why I am not a fan of BLM, Black Lives Matter, and why it was a complete scam. So I gave you all this background. Let me give you all the background of BLM, where it actually came from, and how it even started as a scam. And then we'll take it to where we need to go today. So first of all, back in 2013, there was a kid who lost his life by the name of Trayvon Martin. I think most of you are familiar with Trayvon. Even if you don't know the details of the story, we all heard of it because it was a big news story. So Trayvon Martin was a kid living in Florida, and he was staying with his relatives. And one particular night, I'm going to tell you basically the general story that we all heard, that we were all told. Trayvon went to the corner store to go get some snacks. Like he had a soda and he had some Skittles, and he happened to have a hoodie over his head. Now, Trayvon's a young black guy. He was a teen. He was black and pretty tall. He had a hoodie over his head while he was going to the store and walking back to this kind of sort of like a private, semi-private community he was walking through where his relatives lived. Now, while he's walking through this community, this random guy named George Zimmerman, he was a pretty much kind of like a vigilante, half white, half Latin guy who generally looks like he's white. You know how somebody is half one way. And somebody said that, wait a minute, let me look over on TikTok. Hold on, before I even get into this. TikTok says that my account was restricted for race baiting. Or is this a comment, or is this an actual thing that happened? I can't tell. I can't tell if this is somebody commenting or is this something that actually happened. TikTok is giving me notifications here. I'm trying to figure out if this is really happening or if it's not happening. So I don't know. So it said account restricted for race baiting, or account restricted for, I don't know if somebody's commenting that or if this actually happened. I can't tell. Is that real, or is that somebody? Yeah, I can't tell. Is that a real thing, or is that TikTok talking to me? Yeah, I see that too. So I'm trying to figure out if that's real or if that's not. So, all right. So anyway, let me continue. We'll see where this goes. Was that real? Can somebody on TikTok tell me, is that real, or is that somebody leaving a comment, or is that somebody is real? Oh, wow. Okay. So we'll see how this ends up going. So let me try to say this talking around TikTok's restrictions. We already know how it is with TikTok. So someone said, fact check. I think that's TikTok. It said George Zimmerman was found not guilty. I'm not done. I haven't even told the story yet, TikTok. Let me tell the story. So I'm telling y'all the official story, and then I'm going to tell you the other parts that generally weren't heard by most people. So TikTok, please let me get through this. Please let me tell the story. Shogi, what's going on? Good morning. What's going on, Brittany? I see you in there. Please let me tell the story, TikTok. Okay, I'm going to tell the story. I'm telling y'all what happened. So let me breeze through this before I even get too detailed. So anyway, George Zimmerman goes in. He calls the cops. He's on the phone with the cops. And he says, I see this kid in the neighborhood, and he looks suspicious. Cops say, leave him alone. George Zimmerman approaches him. They get into a fight. Long story short, George Zimmerman shoots Trayvon Martin. He goes to court. He ends up getting found not guilty. All right, TikTok, you satisfied? All right, did I tell it? Is that true? All right, so George Zimmerman gets found not guilty. And I remember when he got found not guilty, I was in Miami. I was going to a restaurant with my friend Maria. And I remember I saw it on TV. George Zimmerman was walking out the courtroom. It was all over the news. And it said, George Zimmerman found not guilty. And I was like, what? How did he get found not guilty? That's crazy. Because I was like, I didn't understand how he could get found not guilty based on the story that we heard. Now, here's what I'll say. And I'm not going to go into too much detail on this because TikTok's already telling me you're saying too much. There is a documentary out there, a video you can find on YouTube. You can find it on free online. It's called The Trayvon Hoax. And this guy, who's a investigative journalist, he went and kind of dug into the case to find out, because when Zimmerman got found not guilty, a lot of people got mad, right? And that's when Black Lives Matter popped up. So this is the frame from which I'm talking about this. A lot of people were mad that Zimmerman got found not guilty because it looked like, based on the story we heard, that this guy was completely wrong. And make sure y'all follow me on YouTube, by the way, if you're watching me on this app right here, because I only been talking for 5 minutes. So you already know. Make sure you follow me on YouTube. I'm live on YouTube right now. So anyway, There's a guy who did it. He's an investigative journalist. He went and dug into all the details of this case, and he put out this documentary. It's maybe an hour or two long. It's called The Trayvon Hoax, where he basically went and looked at the story that we all were told, the story that most of you have heard. And he said, well, wait a minute. There are some things in this story that maybe are not as clear as people think they are. And y'all can go find that. Again, it's called The Trayvon Hoax. You can find it on YouTube, probably for free. Anybody on YouTube, let me know if y'all can find that. I saw it on YouTube, and there was a website. I believe the website is called thetrayvonhoax.com or something like that. And it's free. You can just watch the video. So anyway, all that said, let's stop talking about that because we already know. TikTok already told me. So when it comes to Black Lives Matter, they popped up because of that. Black Lives Matter began on the heels of that and other things that they said, just an amalgamation. Trayvon was kind of like the tipping point. And then we know in 2020, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, it blew up and it exploded. So Black Lives Matter. All right, let's start here. They were out since 2013, but they got some attention, but not a ton. Like people knew about them and people heard about it. And the Trayvon thing happened. It came and went. Obama talked about it a little bit and it kind of disappeared. That was 2013 into 2014. And they existed quietly for about half of a decade. Then 2020 happened. We know what happened in 2020. The Breonna Taylor story first came out and some people knew about it, but not really. I didn't really know about it that much. I heard the name, but I didn't really pay attention. Then the George Floyd thing happened and everybody knew about that one because the video was viral on social media. So whatever app you're watching me on, all of you saw that video. I remember when it happened. This was late May in 2020 because at that point, I remember I was doing live streams every day. I wasn't on TikTok then. I was mostly on, I think I was going live on Instagram and Facebook, not even YouTube. I would put the replays on YouTube. I was going live on Instagram and Facebook, and I would do lives just talking about personal development stuff, business stuff, entrepreneurship. And when that video went viral, people were coming in my comments while I was talking about something else and saying, Dre, what do you have to say about this thing that y'all, because this video was super viral. Y'all remember the George Floyd video, right? The video that showed, not the whole video, but the short video that just showed the cop kneeling on George Floyd. And I'm not even gonna get into too much detail about that, but y'all saw the video. All right, let's just keep it there. So that's when, of course, we had the summer of social justice. There was an election coming up this year. So you had Trump against Biden. Then at that time, COVID had just hit. COVID kind of became big around March, and this happened in May. So you got all of this stuff happening. Election, COVID, George Floyd, all happened at the same time. Black Lives Matter started to get a lot of attention because now Black Lives Matter is like, well, look, you see this cop with his knee on this black guy. This black guy ends up passing away. They drew a parallel between that and Colin Kaepernick, because remember Colin Kaepernick taking a knee and he ended up not playing in the NFL anymore. And they said, well, see, Black Lives Matter was right all along. Colin Kaepernick was right all along. And Black Lives Matter started to get a lot of, we could just say positive attention based on this. Here was their problem. I said this last week in one of my lives, that when Black Lives Matter started to get more attention, because again, we got to remember the context, they've been around for 7 years. It's not like they were brand new. They had been around. They had a website. Everybody had heard of it. But all of a sudden now they were getting a lot more attention. So people started looking at their website. On their website, the About page, they had a specific section in that page that said, what are we trying to do? What's our goal here? And what it said, and I'm paraphrasing, and you can't read it now because they changed their website. But what it said was, we want to center women and children and want to disrupt the nuclear family. Those are the three key things that they were saying on their About page on their website in 2020 before they got a ton of attention. And when people saw that, they were like, wait a minute. All right, this organization said we want to disrupt the nuclear family and we want to center women and children. There's no mention of men whatsoever in their About page at that time. So what happened is when they got all this attention, they noticed that, and because this was negative attention, because a lot of black people were pointing this out like, wait a minute, why are y'all trying to disrupt the nuclear family? Nuclear family is kind of like the foundation of raising strong kids and strong communities. They went and changed their website and took that part off. So if you go look it up now, I doubt that that's there anymore because they took that down back in 2020 because they noticed the negative attention because at that time they were taking in a lot of money. Y'all are familiar with Candace Owens. Candace Owens did a documentary where she basically dug into BLM's backstory, who runs it, because they took in like probably 9 figures or more in donations in the year 2020. Some people who I follow, some people who I know, some people whose material I respect and whose businesses I respect donated money to BLM in the year 2020. We're not going to say any names. They know who they are. And they were giving money. And it's specifically people who are not black were giving money because I think they felt a sense of guilt by their skin color, or what happened to George Floyd, et cetera. And I understand the energy that was behind that in the year 2020. There was a lot of energy, there was a lot of momentum, and it drew a whole lot of attention, and it took in a lot of money. If you didn't see that Candace Owens documentary, I don't remember the name of it. Anybody remember the name of that documentary she did about Black Lives Matter? I watched it, but I don't remember what it was called. If somebody can put the title of that in there, then that'll help, because then I can direct all of you to it. All of that said, what do I believe is the biggest issue for Black Americans is the dismantling of the family. Not even dismantling, but the lack of nuclear family. This is the first point that you need to understand about BLM. My first challenge to BLM is that we know, if you are Black, you understand this, whether you come from a nuclear family, have one, or you come from a broken family, broken meaning you don't have mom and dad at home, is that the nuclear family is the biggest challenge that we have in the Black community. It is not anything else. It's the lack of nuclear families, the fact that we don't have them percentage-wise as much as every other group in the United States of America. And BLM's their aim before they got called out on it was to dismantle the nuclear family. This is the biggest issue that I have with BLM. And this is the foundation of what they're about. Again, this was on their about page. This is what they said they wanted to do. This is not what anybody else said about them. This is what they said about themselves. That's anybody put the title of that? I don't know if anybody knows it, but anyway, any of you know the title of that doc, put it in there that Candace Owens made. But anyway, just look up her and Black Lives Matter. You'll see it. I believe that one's behind a paywall, though, when she was with Daily Wire. And I know she's not with them anymore, so who knows? Maybe they kicked her out. Maybe they kicked that documentary off. But anyway, they said, all right, so now I'm reading straight from their website. Here's what it says. People say they don't like Candace Owens. Well, you don't have to like Candace Owens personally. I don't know Candace Owens, never met her. I don't like her or dislike her, but her message and the material that she delivered about them, you can see for yourself. I'm not even going to say whether it's right or wrong. Go see it for yourself and then draw a conclusion. So here's what they said. I'm reading straight from the BLM website before they changed it. Okay, TikTok, this is before they changed the website. Quote, "We dismantle the patriarchal practice. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages, quote unquote, that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable, period," close quote. That's what they had on their website. And they did not mention men at all, we understand, all of you understand this, male or female, you all understand, men are traditionally the heads of households, right? I think everybody agrees with that, right? And men are also who teach young men to be men and do not do the stupid thing that may get you into violent encounters with other men when you go outside of the house, such as your teachers, such as your coaches, such as your religious leaders, such as police. And when men are not teaching men, then a man's only resource to learn how to be an adult is a female. The problem with a male only having a female to teach him how to be an adult is that the male can only mirror the energy of what he has. The role model that he has was a woman. The problem with a man walking around with the energy of a woman is that the man has the physicality and the impulses of a man, yet he has the energy of a female. That's a bad combination. We don't want that, because women tend to be more emotional, men tend to be more logical. So if you take a man who has all the physicality of the masculine side, but the energy of the feminine side, this is where you get the crazy stuff that happens, that I want to be careful what I say here. When you get places like places that little kids go every day with the teachers, and someone goes in there and does something they're not supposed to do. Again, I'm talking around this language because of a certain application I'm on right now. These kind of things only happen when men are not properly shepherded by other men. So when Black Lives Matter says we want to disrupt the patriarchal practice, and I don't know what they want to replace it with, I guess the matriarchy, that's a bad idea, because what we're going to do is raise a whole bunch of a society of weak men, or men who don't know how to be men. And that's going to cause society to collapse. Society we live in today is what it is because it was built by men. All right. The infrastructure, the buildings, the roads, all of those things were built and are continually built and are maintained by men. That's just reality of the situation. Again, it doesn't matter if you're male or female, and nobody can go against that reality. That's just what it is. So when BLM says we want to disrupt the nuclear family, and we want women or we want boys and girls raised by villages and raised by women, and we don't want men involved at all, what are they preaching here? What are they actually trying to accomplish? What's that going to do to help the Black community? How would that help any community? How would that help any group to just remove men from the situation. We just want to raise our children in villages. This is a really bad thing. This is the foundation of why BLM was a scam, because they were trying to insert and install this whole idea of matriarchy. Let's replace the patriarchy. And BLM did not start this. Let me be very clear. BLM did not start this. Let me tell you a quick anecdote. So I come from a 2-parent household. My mother and father were at home. I had one sister. I saw my mother and father every day. And if I didn't see them, my dad sometimes worked 2 jobs. If I didn't see him, I knew where he was. So back in the this is probably the 90s. Y'all remember the movie Waiting to Exhale? Y'all remember that movie? Waiting to Exhale. It was Angela Bassett, a woman named Lila Roshan. Who were the other women in Waiting to Exhale? Y'all remember that movie? So when this movie Waiting to Exhale came out, I remember Mary J. Blige had she did the soundtrack. She had one of the hit records on the soundtrack called I'm Not Gonna Cry. Remember that song, I'm Not Gonna Cry? My mom loved that song. She would listen to that song over and over again. So when the movie Waiting to Exhale came out, Whitney Houston was in that? All right, great. When that movie came out, I remember my dad, he used to always comment about the movie. And he said it in a tongue-in-cheek way, but he was being dead serious. He said, this movie is just male bashing. That's all it is. If y'all remember that movie, that's what it was. It was male bashing. And there's a guy who passed away a few years ago named Kevin Samuels. Can I say that name on TikTok? Hopefully I can. He's been passed away for 2.5 years. Remember Kevin Samuels? And Kevin Samuels talked about this many times in his content back in the day, but before he passed like 2.5 years ago. But in his content, he would talk about this all the time. And he would talk about The Color Purple. You remember the movie Color Purple? That one's a little bit older. Some of you may not remember. I remember the movie, but I don't remember like scenes from the movie. Waiting to Exhale, I kind of remember a lot more. But he said, Kevin Samuels used to call this the color purpling of Black America. And the whole concept, if you look at The Color Purple, you look at Waiting to Exhale, you look at many movies that were aimed at the Black community over the last 30, 40 years, you notice the same themes. You have these men who are good for nothing, and they might make money, but they have bad morals. Or maybe they're trying to be a good guy, but they don't have the resources, or they're just not manly enough. Somehow, some way, the man ends up coming up short. He doesn't measure up, and the woman has to take over because the man is just not doing his job. This is the kind of message that's been preached to the Black community for decades. For as long as I've been alive, this message has been preached to the Black community. And my dad used to always say, whenever the movie Waiting to Exhale was talked about, because it was very popular in the Black community in the 90s, he would say, this is just male bashing. The whole movie is just preaching to the Black community that men ain't shit and women had to pick up for where men fall off. And again, this was in the 90s. We're 30 years in, and the same message is still being preached to the Black community. And this is what BLM just picked up on. So BLM didn't start this. All they did was take the wave that they saw was already going, and they said, okay, let's put a name to this and let's keep pushing it. And let's keep pushing this, that we're going to disrupt the patriarchy. Now, what do you hear a lot of women talking about these days? Not just Black women, but you hear a lot of women talking about this. We want to disrupt the patriarchy. And sometimes they're talking about white men, but generally they're talking about men don't have to be in charge all the time. Women can also be in charge. So let's talk about that right now, because I know there are a lot of women listening to me right now. I'm going to give you some reality that if you disagree with this reality, please tell me why. That it only became a thing that people just in general started saying, well, women can be in charge. We let men be in charge all this time, and we're not in a good space. So now we got to let women step up and take the place of men, et cetera, et cetera. This is only a popular idea when everything is safe, neat, clean, and there's pure structure in place. Because see, I live in the United States of America. I live in Miami, Florida. If some foreign enemy decide to attack America and come into our country, not us going over there, but them coming over here, and all of a sudden now the everyday person has to take up arms to defend the country, I don't think there'd be any women saying, hey, women need to be in charge. See, that only happens when the structure is already in place, the corporation is already successful, there's already money being made, everybody is already in a comfortable space, and we have good times going generally. Then all of a sudden, everybody's like, well, hey, it's my turn to be in charge. My turn to be in charge. Nobody wants to be in charge when you might lose your life being in charge. Nobody wants to be in charge when you might not come back home after you go out for the day. See, nobody wants to be in charge then. Nobody's asking to be in charge when it's hard. People only ask to be in charge when it's easy. And this is where this whole concept of destroy the patriarchy came in, because we live in a relatively safe society. You live in the United States of America. Most of you are not leaving the house every day wondering if you're going to make it back, for the most part. And this is the only time, only when this happened, that all of a sudden we got this concept coming. I'm not saying every woman is guilty of this, be clear. Only then did we get this concept that, oh, well, men don't have to be in charge all the time. How about a woman be in charge? See, a woman can be in charge when everything is safe and calm and neat. Y'all remember the movie, not the movie, but the TV show Game of Thrones on HBO? Did y'all see that? Any of y'all watch Game of Thrones? It is a perfect example. And it's not even a woman that is, I'm not even going to use a woman as an example here from Game of Thrones. But if you saw the TV show Game of Thrones, there was a time in the show when the young king was King Joffrey. Remember, King Joffrey was he's a little boy. He's probably like 12 years old or something. But he was technically the king because his dad wasn't there anymore. And he technically had claims to the throne. He was old enough to kind of understand he had the throne. But then the enemies from another land were coming. This is a fictional show. The enemies from another land were coming in to attack their land, the land that King Joffrey was technically king of. And he had all his soldiers down in the bunker, and they were supposed to be going out to fight. And King Joffrey, y'all remember this scene? King Joffrey was supposed to go lead his men. He was talking to his little brother. His brother was the, what do they call that guy? What was it? His brother's name in the Game of Thrones, the little short guy. I got to be careful what language I use to describe him. But that little short guy, his brother, whatever that guy's name was, when they were supposed to be going out to the war, the little brother, not the little brother, he was older, but he was short. He was going to, was his uncle? Okay. Was it Tyrion? Yeah, so Tyrion, right, Tyrion's, because Tywin was the older dad, older grandfather, whatever he was. Tyrion is saying to Joffrey, hey, go lead them. All right, this is what you're supposed to do. You're the king. This is exactly when we need a king, when we're in battle, and these people are coming in here to destroy us. They're going to kill all of us. They're going to enslave our kids. They're going to do the R word to our women. If they defeat us, we got to defeat them. You're the king. Go lead them. And you know what Joffrey did? Any of y'all saw the Game of Thrones? You know what Joffrey did. He got scared and he ran away to go hide with his mom. That's what he did. And then Tyrion, he's the one who went and led the army, and they went and defeated the enemy that was coming in. The point being, I'm saying all that to say this, is that if there was that type of situation happening in America, there'd be no women clamoring for the matriarchy. There'd be no women saying, let's destroy the patriarchy, let's put women in charge. Nobody would be saying that. That only happened when it was safe enough, it appeared to be safe enough and organized enough and systematic enough and prosperous enough that now women are like, okay, I want to lead now. Now that everything's working, let me be the leader. Yeah, sounds good. Until we're in a crisis situation, nobody wants to lead then. Who wants to lead when things are going terribly? That's usually going to be the men, because it's the man's duty. And because this is the way that we are wired as men, we want to step up when it gets challenging. We want to step up when it's literally life or death. We want to step up then. That's how it was designed. It only became that when it got comfortable. All that said, let's keep moving. Let's keep it moving. Moving on to point number 2. Black Lives Matter. I'm telling you why Black Lives Matter is why I'm not a fan. Let's just call it that so I don't say it again. Point number 2. BLM is not about black people. BLM was not designed for or about black people. Let me explain to you why. Let me tell you why BLM was not designed for black people. Now, the slogan, of course, sounds great. It's a great slogan. So whoever came up with the concept Black Lives Matter and made it into a slogan and branded it, beautiful idea. Great. Whoever came up with that, I'm hating, because you did a great job coming up with that slogan. I wish I had come up with it. Great slogan. Problem is, BLM only showed up when they could blame a white person. All right, this TikTok, you want to claim you want to flag me for this one? All right. Hopefully, let me stop playing around with TikTok before they kick me off. Make sure y'all subscribe to me on YouTube and follow me on Instagram if you're watching me on TikTok. But BLM only popped up when they could blame a white person. All right. Can anybody challenge me on this point? Can anyone challenge me on this point? All right. Please leave a comment in the comments wherever you're watching me right now. If you can challenge me on this point. BLM only popped up and made noise when there was a white person to blame. I never heard BLM pop up when a black person did something to a black person. Never, not once. Did you? Now, I'm not saying they never said anything. And there are different chapters of BLM in different cities and all of that. I get it. So if you live in the city, you live in Chicago or Phoenix, and there's a BLM chapter there, and y'all did a march because there was some interracial violence happening in your community. I get it. I'm not saying that never happened at all. When I'm talking the national news that they drew attention for, BLM only did that when there was somebody of fair skinned that could be blamed for the situation. Breonna Taylor situation, George Floyd situation, Trayvon Martin situation, the high profile ones, that's pretty much how they did. This is what we call race hustling. And I did a whole live explaining this whole concept of race hustling. All right, that's when it happened. When they could only when they could blame a white person. All right, so whenever it's black doing something to a black person, I didn't hear BLM say a damn thing. And by the way, you all can look up the crime data. The FBI publishes this data every year. They changed up the way they put the data out. It used to be much more clear to read, but you can still find it. You got to learn how to parse data and look through the charts and all that stuff. They put out so many charts and graphs as to make it confusing. But you can look up this data. If you look up the violent crime data, and specifically the data of lives being lost, and again, I'm just talking around certain words. I got to be careful my verbiage on certain streams here. You look up specifically lives being lost, because not all crime gets reported, right? Somebody could steal from a store and then not get reported as a crime because they didn't get caught. But when it comes to lives being lost, those always nobody ignores a dead body, right? So those ones we can go off of and pretty much know that those happen. When you look at those numbers, you know that the black on black numbers are pretty much equal to the white on white numbers. Now, how is this possible? How is that possible when there are 5 times as many white people in America as there are black people in America? When the numbers are equal, but it's 5 times more white people than black people. That means the rate has to be 5 times higher on the black side. That's how you can understand that data. And that was the last year of data that it was that clear. It was like maybe 2019. They put out data of recent years, but it takes years for them to put out the actual data. And this is something that first of all, a lot of black people don't know this data. Some of you listening to this probably didn't know that. And again, you can find this online. This is not something that I made up. It's not secret information. You don't have to pay to get access to it. It's all out there available online, that the rate is 5 times higher black on black than it is white on white. All right, that's the reality. And there are 5 times more of them than it is of us. Now, here's some of the things that people say. Well, people commit crime against people who they are in proximity to. So because black people live next to each other, that's the reason why the rate is higher. Bullshit. Please miss me with that bullshit. That would mean that I live in a building. I live in a condominium building. It's probably 800 people live in this building. Does that mean we're all just going to be committing violence against each other because we live next door? Nonsense. All right, this is nonsense, basically deflection that a lot of black people try to use as basically to resolve the lack of accountability that we want to give to each other. This is nonsense. All right, this is a much higher and much more prevalent thing, and the number is a whole lot bigger. And BLM, no speeches, nothing from the mainstream about it. Barack Obama touched on it. He touched on it a little bit at one point during his administration. During his 8 years, he touched on it just a little bit. And he kind of didn't really touch on it anymore after that. And I thought the very purpose of BLM was to protect black lives. I mean, let's think about what it's called. Black Lives Matter. So doesn't that mean that if any black life gets lost, regardless of how it got lost, that they should be stepping up and making noise and saying, let's do something about this? Isn't that what it means? That's what it means, right? If I say Black Lives Matter and I make a whole organization called Black Lives Matter, that means anytime something adverse happens to a black life, I got a problem with it. And I'm going to do something about it. But what I noticed, and any of you can let me know if you noticed something different, only time they made noise is when the life was adversely affected by somebody who was not black, specifically white people, or the system, which they can pin on white people. So like cops, the system. It's not like who's the cop with Breonna Taylor. We don't know their names, but they were cops, right? And cops are the system. And those cops were the most part, I believe, who came in to her house that night were white people. With George Floyd, we saw the cop. He was a white guy. All right. So Trayvon Martin. All right. That guy was half white. So this is when BLM makes noise. And the issue is not that BLM, not just that BLM made the noise. The issue was that they sold this to everybody. They sold it not only to the black community, they sold it to everybody. They sold it to all of the United States of America. Everybody got sold on this. So there wasn't one group that got fooled. Everybody got fooled. They only cared when a white man is a perpetrator. Now, let me ask you a question. Do y'all find that interesting? Do y'all find that interesting? Is this news to any of you? Again, this is why I wasn't even expecting to do this live, as a matter of fact, because when I mentioned this offhand, like last week, one of my lives I did last week, people seemed very interested in what I said about BLM. I didn't know that y'all hadn't already drawn these conclusions. I drew this conclusion in like 2021. When I first talked about this, it was like 2021. I have a video on YouTube talking about BLM. Y'all want to see it? Just go look me up on YouTube, look up BLM with my name, and you'll see the video. It came out, I think, in 2021. So I didn't know that this was news to any of you. So I was surprised the way that y'all had responded in the comments when I mentioned this. But they had the same parameters for news as your mainstream news networks. If it bleeds, it leads. They're just looking for whatever is going to draw all the attention. But it is, what's the word that I would use here? It's disingenuous, because their whole concept is talking to black people. Hey, we care about the lives of black people, but they only seem to make noise again at certain times when there's a white person to blame, when in fact, when something bad happens to a black life, usually it's at the hands of a black person, not a white person. So they're taking the small things that are kind of not even once in a blue moon is the wrong term, but something that is not the majority of bad things happening to black people. And they're making news about this, but they're not making news about what's happening every day. And that's disingenuous. And again, if you're not telling the truth, you're lying. And that's what they're doing. Moving on to point number 3. Now, they came up in, again, 2013. So it's been a decade. Let's just say a decade BLM has been alive. Let me ask you a question. What have they accomplished? Just put in the comments. I'm watching the comments now. What have they accomplished? All right, so I see Terry said, you're disingenuous. You know, the BLM is to fight against systemic racism, not crime. Okay, well, a black person losing their life, is that part of systemic racism? What has BLM accomplished? This is my question. What have they accomplished? It's been 10 years. They've been around for 10 years. Name their list their accomplishments. So that person who left that comment, Terry, you said BLM is against systemic racism and not crime. Okay, what have they accomplished? Let's see. What have they accomplished? Terry Joey on TikTok. What has BLM accomplished? All right, since you know what they're about, what have they done to that end in 10 years? You're in business for 10 years, you're probably going to accomplish something, because to stay in business, to keep paying your bills, keep the lights on, you got to be doing something. What have they done? Now, if you only lasted 10 months, then you might have just been trash from the beginning. But 10 years, somehow, some way, somebody's paying the bills. All right, so what have they achieved in 10 years? That's what I'm looking for. Anybody know? What have they achieved in 10 years? Well, first of all, they've taken in a ton of donations. They were taking in donations steadily, but kind of on the low after the Trayvon Martin thing. But in the summer of 2020, took in a lot of donations. So again, look up that Candace Owens doc. I don't know if you can even find it now, because I believe she was still with the Daily Wire, those folks. So she's not with them anymore. I believe it was published via Daily Wire. They should still have it up, because they'll probably make money off of it. And I believe it was behind a paywall. So just to let you all know, you go find it. You might have to pay to get access to it. I would say it's worth it. I don't know, how much was it? Maybe $10, $20, something like that. It's still on Daily Wire. All right, great. So yeah, that's where it is. BLM has accomplished nothing in 10 years. Nothing. And now, actually, let me back up. That's not true. I got to give them credit for something. The George Floyd situation, that police officer, Mr. Chauvin, I believe, I got to be careful how I say this. And again, subscribe to me on YouTube before I say this. So just in case, if y'all see this stream disappear, all right, subscribe to me on YouTube. I'm live on YouTube. I will keep going Instagram and or YouTube while I'm talking. If this disappears while I'm talking, follow me on Instagram and YouTube. I'm going to keep talking. I believe that the officer had a chance had it not been for the attention drawn to that case. That's the way I'll say that. I want to say it more clearly than that. I want to be more direct than that, but I can't. And I'm looking over here for a reason. I can't be more direct than that. I believe he might have had a chance in court had it not been for the type of attention that was drawn to that situation and the way it was blown up so big to the point that if you remember that, I think that was in the spring of 2021, right? So Floyd passed away in May of 2020, and then he went to court. The trial happened pretty quickly. By the spring of 2021, the jury was already deliberating and about to deliver a verdict. If y'all remember that day, any of you remember that day when they were about to announce the verdict? And they, in Minneapolis, where this case happened, they had boarded up the streets. A bunch of businesses were boarded up. They put fencing around the courthouse. They had set it up like it was about to be some type of civil disobedience, for lack of a better term, if that outcome was the wrong outcome. And ended up being the right outcome. He ended up getting found guilty, Officer Chauvin, and the other 3 officers who were with him. They all got time as well, even though, what did they do? But anyway, they got time as well, much less time. He got a whole lot of time. I believe that Black Lives Matter had a lot to do with those outcomes happening. So I got to give them credit for that. They did do that. All right. So success, BLM, I do give them that point If they have one accomplishment, I would say that that's their crowning achievement. Same way, a lot of people say that Barack Obama's administration, his crowning achievement was creating the Affordable Care Act. That was like the biggest thing he wanted to do, and he succeeded. I got to give BLM credit for what happened there. I believe, and again, follow me on YouTube and Instagram in case it disappears. I believe that Officer Chauvin, if he is able to go back through the court process, I believe he has a chance. And again, I got to be careful what I'm saying. I'm talking around this. I don't usually talk like this, but y'all know the deal. All right. So all the accomplishments BLM has had, aside from the hashtag, aside from getting people to gather up to protest, they have gotten people to protest. I don't consider that an accomplishment. Protesting is just a form of complaining. If you want to protest, I'm not saying you can't do it, but that's not an accomplishment. And this new wave of race hustlers who have come along, that's all BLM has created. Actually, so let me give them a semi-point on this. The race hustler. I did a whole live on race hustlers not too long ago, and y'all can find that on YouTube. And I got multiple videos talking about race hustler. A race hustler, just to define what it is a person who takes a topic and they racialize it. In other words, they make it all about race or as much about race as possible. And then they leverage the fact that they made the situation about race and they leverage that into opportunities to do business and make money. So just talking about race does not make you a race hustler, but talking about race in a way that is part of your business model, that makes you a race hustler. So Robin DeAngelo, white woman, race hustler. Ibram X. Kendi, black guy, race hustler. There are many others. Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, Godfathers of race hustling. They've been doing this there for literally probably longer than I've been alive. And then you got the new wave of people. I believe BLM birthed a new wave of race hustlers, several of them who make everything about race. And then their business is based on that. So they have TV shows, podcasts, social media. They do speaking gigs, consulting, write books, et cetera, all about race. Some of them use social media and they do this. So I will give BLM those points. Okay. So anybody think I'm just saying negative stuff about BLM, I'm giving them some positive points here. Everybody heard those things, right? Okay. Everybody got that? Good. Let's move on. Black Lives Matter. We're talking about why Black Lives Matter is, I'm not a fan. All right. I got to be careful how I talk about them. Again, TikTok's giving me a couple warnings already. So I got to be careful how I talk here for the rest of this particular topic. So those of you who are new to me and have not heard me speak before, I usually get much more direct on things that I'm saying, but I got to be careful how I say stuff here today because TikTok gave me some warnings within 5 minutes of me starting this live here today. And TikTok, I got more people watching on TikTok than all the other ones right now. So I gotta respect the data. Number 4. All right. Black Lives Matter only loves black people when they're dead. They only make news of you when you're passed away. All right. Think of these people whose names I mentioned. All of you know their names. Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. All right. Why do you know their names? And there's a bunch of others. All right. Y'all can put their names in the comments. They're all names of people who passed away at the hands of something that a non-black person did, and BLM and their offspring made news out of these people's names. All right, this is what they did. Oh, Ben Crump is a great example. He's a lawyer who he seems to show up every time something happens to a black person, but a white person is to blame, and he is the lawyer who goes and sues the city or the state or the government, whatever, and helps get them paid for it. It's not that he's necessarily wrong. He ain't the only lawyer that does it, but he's become very famous for doing this. So he's another one. I do consider Ben Crump a race hustler, and he probably happy to be called a race hustler. He is a successful race hustler. So all that, please, again, y'all know the names, right? The people black people whose names became famous after they passed away at the hands of something that a white person or a cop or quote unquote the system did to them. Y'all know the names. Please give us some names. Put some of those names in the comments. I'm talking about in the last 15 years. Those people, and there are many of them. I got to be careful what names I say here. I probably can say some of these names. These names are people who have passed away. You had the kid, last name Rice. Trayvon already mentioned. You had a woman whose name is Bland. Now she actually took her own life. If you know her story, but yes, Soul Art. Mike Brown said one. Walter Scott is another one. Yes. What else? There are a few other. Brianna, I mentioned her already. That was a big story. Yes. Tamir is another one. And there are several others. The whole point is, notice all these people are not alive anymore. All right. Who do you know that Black Lives Matter has made famous who's still alive? Name somebody. Name somebody who's still alive today who is known because of Black Lives Matter. Many of you don't even know the names of the people who started Black Lives Matter, and they designed it that way. This is the reason why Candace Owens' documentary went and started putting their names out there and drawing attention to them. because she just wanted to see what they were about. She basically did investigative journalism that the news didn't do. So I see a couple of you mentioning names that I don't even know myself, but I believe you. The whole point being, there are people who they have passed away. That's when they became news. Unless y'all mentioning people who are still alive. Okay, is anybody naming somebody who's still alive that BLM made famous? Someone who's still alive today? Name them. We don't even know who the people even started BLM. Many of you don't even know their names. I find that just interesting. It doesn't make them wrong. It's just very interesting. So you take Mr. Floyd, who was Mr. Floyd in Minneapolis. Mr. Floyd in Minneapolis. Now, I got to be careful what I say because I don't know if TikTok's going to like this. So I gotta talk around this. Mr. Floyd had a history. We know he had a history. We know he had a record of being in and out of the system. And everybody can establish that. Okay, we can establish that as true. Now, here's the thing. There are a lot of black men alive today who have a similar background to Mr. Floyd, that they have a history with the system. They have a history of being in and out of the system, and they're walking around our neighborhoods every single day. Here's my question to you. Let me ask this question to you. How many of you on a daily basis, especially you black folks, when you're walking around your neighborhood and you see a Mr. Floyd walking around your neighborhood, how many of you talk to him? How many of you shake his hand? How many of you know him, know his background, have a conversation with him, buy him some McDonald's? How many of you do that when you come across a Mr. Floyd in your community? Because if you're from a black neighborhood, you know there are a whole bunch of them walking around the neighborhood every day, alive right now. How many of you engage with these people? How many of you talk to them, engage with them, shake their hands, know them, any of these things? Dog mom, I don't know who that is you just mentioned there. Is that a passed away person or is that a live person? Either way, I never heard of them. I'm saying all this to say, for the most part, the answer is we don't. That's the point. The point is we don't. We don't engage with the Mr. Floyds walking around in our communities, even though we see them. We know who they are. When I'm outside and last week, as a matter of fact, I was taking my son on a walk, and my neighborhood this is not a black neighborhood that I live in, but I come from one. But I was walking my son last week. My son's only 2 years old, and this guy, black guy, he kind of fit the profile. Let's just say. I don't know what he was doing in my neighborhood, because usually they don't walk around this neighborhood. He was out there, and he was kind of like talking people up, and he saw me like across the way. I was almost into the front door of my building, and he saw me across the way, and he yelled out. He was like, "Black man." And I didn't hear him the first time. He said it like 2 or 3 times, "Black man, black man." And then I finally turned and saw him, and he was all like jovial, like he knew me, like, "What's up, man? Come here." And he was trying to tell me to come here. And of course, I'm over age of 40. You don't speak to me like that. I completely ignored him and just went in the building. The point being, I don't talk to those people, especially when I'm with my kids. Don't approach me when I'm with my child at all. Any of you ever see me out there, you can say what's up. I'll watch you on your live streams. But if I'm with my child, do not bother me. But anyway, this guy, he usually gets ignored by people. We ignore those people when we see them in the neighborhood. We don't do anything negative to them. We don't spit on them, but we ignore them. But when Mr. Floyd passed away, all of a sudden, everybody had all these feelings about it. And I said this in 2021. How many of you talk to a Mr. Floyd in your neighborhood when you see him every day? Usually you ignore them. Usually you walk around them. If you're a woman, you may see them coming down the street. You might cross the street and make sure you don't make eye contact with them so they don't even think about speaking to you. Is that not how we engage with these people? We ignore them. We don't talk to them. We don't want them around our kids. If we're going to the playground and they're in the park, we might take our kids to a different park or ask them to get the hell out of there so our kids can play. We don't engage with these folks. But all of a sudden, when he passed away, now everybody had all this love for him. I found that, and that's not even a BLM thing. That's just people, I believe, people just straight up faking. That's what I had to say. And when it comes to BLM, we know that BLM raised a whole lot of money. All right, we don't even. Candace Owens gave the exact number. It was in the 9 figures. They raised that much money. Now they've been around for 10 years. Let me ask you a question. Any of you who lives in a black community, or you come from a black community like I do, is there a BLM community center in your town? Detroit, New York, Philly, Baltimore, Boston, Chicago, LA, Phoenix, Dallas, Houston, New Orleans, Miami, Tampa Bay, Orlando, Raleigh, North Carolina, Charlotte, Norfolk, Virginia, Virginia Beach. Does any of you name a BLM community center in the town in which you live. It's literally called BLM Community Center. Like, it's sponsored by them. They put the money up and their name's on the building. Any of you know of one? I don't know of any. Now, if there is one, somebody let me know. If there is one, somebody let me know and tell me what town is in. Does anybody know of one? Does anybody know of one? I have not heard of a single one. Now, how they taking 9 figures in what's the word? Donations. What they do with the money? Where'd the money go? This is an interesting question that should be answered. And by the way, it has been answered. Candace Owens answered it in her documentary. Any of you know the answer where the money went? I know the answer. I can tell you the answer. Yeah, some people said mansions and houses. That's where some of it went. That's not all of it. The bulk of it went somewhere else. Any of you know where the bulk of the money went from that got donated to BLM? It went to a certain place. Is a 4-letter phrase that I got to be careful not saying here on TikTok. That should kind of give you all away where it went. Yes, that's one of them. One of them is DNC, Democratic Party, and there's another one. That's the 3-letter phrase. Another one's a 4-letter phrase. I know where the rest of that money went. The rest of them went somewhere that's a 4-letter phrase, and they have a flag. Let's just put it that way. All right, that's where the rest of the money went. All right, and no BLM community centers, none. And what is BLM doing to help? What's BLM doing to help the George Floyds that are still alive? Is BLM taking these people off the streets? Are they putting them in like a Job Corps like training program? Are they putting them somewhere where they have somewhere to live and their no bills are paid and they have good food to eat? Are they teaching them trades? What are they doing with all that? Yes, Life According to CAF got the answer. I'm surprised nobody else put that answer. That's where the rest of the money went that a lot of you may not even know. It went to the 3-letter phrase DNC and then the 4-letter phrase that I'm afraid to say on TikTok. And they got a flag. I'll just say that group. All right, that's where the rest of the money went. And yeah, can somebody find the name of that Candace Owens documentary? If you just look up Candace Owens and Black Lives Matter, you'll see it, whatever it was called. But she did a whole documentary on it, and y'all should watch that. And she dug deep. She did investigative journalism, which is what your favorite journalists are supposed to be doing every day, but they don't actually do it. She did it, and she figured out exactly where everything went. It's one of the many reasons why a lot of Black people don't like Candace Owens, because she dug into the things that they're emotionally invested in and found out logically what was actually happening. A lot of people don't like Lazarus. So Mr. Floyd, again, he had been in and out of the system. We knew he had used some substances. Why isn't Black Lives Matter, or why hasn't Black Lives Matter created some type of program or system to help people like him who are still alive? Why aren't they doing it? What they do with all that money? Isn't their whole point saving Black lives? Isn't that the whole point? Because we understand that Mr. Floyd, he wasn't some random guy who just had one random thing happen to him. It's not like he was some school teacher with a college degree who just one day happened to run into the wrong cop at the wrong time. This guy had a history of running into police. He had a history of being in and out. So he had a history of these engagements. That day, it just happened to be a perfect storm of bad stuff that he ended up losing his life. But where is the BLM program to help people like him who are still alive today? Why don't they have one? And what they do with all that money? I mean, if the whole point is saving Black lives, why aren't they doing it? Why aren't they doing it today? They still around, right? Don't they still exist? All right, they took in all that money in 2020. What are they doing with it? If you're a BLM fan, please explain to me. Where is it? You go on social media, you probably don't see it too much these days because many people have gotten scared off of supporting it. But when you were on social media in 2020 and into 2021, and you saw people posting the hashtag and all that, how many of those folks? And this is a good question right here. This is a good question. I want to see the answer to this, because a lot of people who are pushing the whole BLM thing, a lot of these people are, there's a phrase that people use called limousine liberals. I guess we can use that. These are people who work on college campuses, people who work in corporate offices, who live in gated communities and private security condominium buildings. These people, and they're talking about, oh, well, we got to help or it's so terrible what happened to Mr. Floyd and all those things. These people don't engage with people like that at all. They don't even come across these people at all in their everyday lives. Like, dude, you live in the suburbs and you couldn't find the hood with Google Maps. What the hell are you doing talking about George Floyd and how terrible it is? When's the last time you had a conversation with the George Floyd ever in your life? Mr. College Professor, Mrs. Corporate Consultant. When the last time you ever even dealt with these people? But they're the ones telling you how terrible it was, what happened to him. And some of them, let me be clear, some of them and some of you may be listening to this right now. You're from the hood, but you ain't in the hood. When's the last time you were in the hood? If you went back to the hood that you came from, who knows you? Nobody. All right. Nobody from the hood that you grew up in. You go back to the block you grew up on. Nobody there who's still there today even remembers your existence. Yet you're talking about how we got to do things to help the Floyds of the world. Like, how? What are you doing? Like, nobody knows you in the hood. All right. You in the gated community, you in the suburbs. And I ain't knocking anybody who moved to a gated community or the suburbs. Beautiful places. However, or you got a doorman at your front door. I ain't knocking it. All right. I'm not knocking it at all. I can't knock it. I'd be lying to knock it. However, at the same time, if you ain't been there, you're not going there, you're not engaging or even coming within 15 feet of anyone who is from there. And if you went back to where you come from, nobody even knows your name. What are you doing talking about these things? Why are you talking about these things? It sounds good on social media, sounds good on TV, sounds good on your research paper, sounds good in your book. Robin DiAngelo wrote a book called White Fragility. When's the last time Robin DiAngelo was in the hood? Robin DiAngelo ain't never been to the hood. Never, ever. But she's writing books telling white people how they're racist. and this worked. I mean, she's making money. Robin DiAngelo, by the way, if y'all don't know, she's the white woman who's in Matt Walsh's documentary, which I still haven't watched yet, but I will. That one is called Am I Racist? And he got her on the film, and he had to pay her consulting fee in order to get her to record with him. And she claimed that she didn't know who he was until after it got recorded and the documentary came out. And then people were trashing her. And then she wrote a little blog post that said, I didn't know who that guy was. And the money that he paid, my consulting fee, I donated that money to charity. And she acted like she didn't know. I believe that she had a pretty good idea of what he was doing, even if she didn't know who Matt was. And she wanted that money. Well, actually, she's a race hustler. She's in the business of making money. And I ain't knocking anybody making money. It's a capitalistic system. You got to make money. Her consulting fee was $15,000. He paid $15,000 for an hour of her time and recorded it and put it in his documentary, by the way, for those of y'all don't know. So when I call someone a race hustler, you may think I'm insulting them, but it's actually a compliment because they're making money off this. So this ain't no volunteer thing. This ain't no charity. These people are making money. So there's a little bit of wave of opportunity left for some of you who might want to get in the game. Not that much. I wouldn't suggest you do it, but there's a possibility. So let's continue on to my next point. So on this point, again, many of these people talking about let's help the Floyds of the world ain't doing it. Don't come in within 15 feet of a George Floyd if they saw them in real life, but from their college campus offices, their suburban homes, and from their doorman security buildings, they want to talk about things like, y'all remember this? Y'all remember the defund the cops thing, right? Y'all remember that, right? Y'all remember defunding the cops? How many of you are in support of that still? Let me ask that question. Anybody put the word defund if you are still today in support of defunding the cops, and put no if you are not, and put never if you never were. I was never in support of defunding the cops. That's crazy. It's crazy to defund the police. All right, that's a ridiculous concept. Quinn on TikTok actually said yes, defunding the police and funding the educational system reduces crime. We'll see. Let's get into that. So the defunding the police thing, I could do a whole lot just on this alone. First of all, if you are not physically capable of defending yourself with your hands, and or you are not a card-carrying Second Amendment supporter, what the hell would you want to get rid of the cops for? What are you going to do? What are you going to do if a Mr. Floyd who's alive today decides to come at you and take what you have? What are you going to do? What are you going to do if you're a woman and there's not a man in the house because you want to destroy the patriarchy, and a George Floyd decides he's going to come take what you have? What are you going to do? You can't fight. You're not a Second Amendment card carrier, and there's no man in the house. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Why would you want to defund the police? That makes no sense. And what's funny is that going back to what we talked about, the patriarchy, the matriarchy, and all this stuff, is that you have women out here and feminized men talking about, well, we got to destroy the patriarchy. Here's the interesting thing. If a woman is by herself, let's say there's no man at home. She has kids, no man at home, is just a woman, and she's all for the matriarchy and destroying the patriarchy. If a Mr. Floyd came to attack her, what would she do? She would call the cops, right? And if the cops come, who's that cop going to be? Who does she want the cop to be? A man, right? A male police officer to defend her against a man, even though she's like, we got to destroy the patriarchy. We don't need men to be in charge. But as soon as you get in trouble, the first thing you do is call for a man to come help you. Interesting, right? So this whole concept of defunding the police was crazy, especially in black neighborhoods. in the black neighborhood, because even though I am a 2A supporter, I'm physically capable of defending myself. You see how I'm dressed. I don't want to have to defend myself. I want to be able to call a cop. I want there to be cops in the neighborhood. When I'm walking around down the street, and this is another thing you heard people saying ridiculously in 2020, going into 2021, that they feel unsafe. This is one of the things behind the defund the police argument, which is a complete nonsense argument. I feel unsafe when police are around. Just seeing the presence of a police officer just makes me feel unsafe, makes me fear for my life. And somebody who I know, whose name I'm not going to say here today, I'm not going to say who they are, but I may in sometime in the future. I've already done this in the past. I'm not going to do it today. That this person wrote, and this is a person who I know for a fact. Let me tell you who this person is. This person that I know for a fact is from the hood, but ain't been to the hood, and nobody from the hood knows him. I know this all true. This person wrote, I saw them write this online, that they don't want to send their kids out to do something like walk the dog because they fear that kid might run into a cop and the cop may mistake them for a criminal and their kid doesn't come back to the house. I thought that was completely ridiculous. Why? Because, again, as soon as there's some type of issue going on, the first thing we want to do is we want a cop. We call a cop. Unless you're ready to fight and unless you got something in your waistband, what else are you going to do if somebody tries to commit some crime against you? Somebody tries to violate you, take what you have. What are you going to do? What else? You can't do anything else. You can run, I guess. Other than that, you can't do anything. So this is a completely ridiculous concept of defunding the police. And then what are we going to do with the money? Put the money into education. Really? That's what we're going to do? Put the money into community systems. Really? That's what we're going to do? All right, because that's working so well right now. All right, no. We need police because police represent law and order. And when a person who is thinking about being a criminal or who is a criminal is thinking about committing a crime, the only thing that makes them think twice is the fact that they're police. If someone's an actual criminal and they do crime all the time, sometimes they get caught, sometimes they don't. The only thing that makes a criminal think twice about committing a crime is the fact that the police might show up and do something to them. That's the only thing stopping a criminal. If there were no police whatsoever, we just eliminated all police, criminals just do whatever they want to do. And any of you who's not a savage, you're going to be the victim of the crime. And what are you going to do? Again, I'm asking this question. This is not a rhetorical question. What are you going to do if there are no police for you to call and there's not a man around, or you're not a man who's willing to get savage with a criminal who is a savage? What are you going to do? You pulled up in your car at the light and a criminal decides they want to take your car and you don't have anything in your waistband and you can't fight, male or female. What are you going to do? You can't call the cops unless they just pull you out of the car, take your car and drive off. You can't call the cops. Ain't no cops. What are you going to do? You can't do anything. What, you going to get on the internet and do a live stream about it? Who are you complaining about? The cops aren't there. They're not responsible because there are no cops. What are you going to complain about? Oh, we need to put more money in the community centers and in the education so that people like that don't exist. Newsflash, folks. People like that will always exist, even if they went to school. I know people who became criminals who went to school. I went to school with them. They became criminals anyway. All right, we went to school. All right, criminal is going to be a criminal no matter what. So this whole concept of defunding the police to make people feel more safe, it sounded good and it played well on TV for a few months. And any of you live in a community where they actually tried this, you notice that they changed it back really quickly, right? All y'all noticed that, right? There are a few communities where they tried this. They said, all right, we're going to actually defund and we're going to give less money to police and more money to other things. And what happened is, of course, y'all know what happened. Crime went up. All those places, crime went up. Why? Because criminals understand. All right, people are who they are, folks. Human beings respond to incentives. If a criminal knows that there is less chance of them being caught and held accountable for committing a crime, they will commit more crime. This is simply how it works. You can't logic with a person who's not logical. And this whole, let's move on. I don't even want to talk about this anymore. We'll talk about that later on. Moving on, two more. Black accountability, Black self-accountability. If you ask me what are the biggest challenges in the Black community, number one, lack of two-parent homes. Number two, our lack of internal accountability. What does internal accountability mean? It means that when Black people are doing things inside of our own communities that are hurting our own communities, we need to point the finger at ourselves and other Black people, not at the system, not at white people, not at some boogeyman that takes all the responsibility and onus off of ourselves. Biggest thing the Black community needs. And here's what's funny. When I say stuff like that, there are Black people who get mad and say, well, you're just saying that to appease white people. No, the fuck I'm not. I'm saying it because this is what Black people actually need to hear. Biggest challenge in the Black community, aside from the lack of two-parent homes, is our lack of self-accountability. That when we do something ourselves to hurt others in our community, or hurt us individually, we don't take ownership of the situation. The first thing we do is look for somebody to blame that is not within our community. So it was crazy to me when they were building statues for Mr. Floyd, because if you get a statue built for you, usually that means you did something like heroic or great, and usually it means you did it on purpose, right? So I understand why some people were, quote unquote, if you want to use this word, inspired by what happened with Mr. Floyd. I don't know how that could inspire you, but fine. But he didn't do that on purpose. He wasn't doing that intentionally. He didn't wake up and say, what can I do to help the community and help the neighborhood? They ended up building monuments and statues for this guy. They want to have a day of remembrance. I disagree completely. Dwayne Wade has a statue here in Miami for the Miami Heat, because he played basketball and he played really well and he helped the team win several championships. Michael Jordan has a statue outside the Chicago Bulls arena. Who else? George Washington has a statue. Abraham Lincoln has a statue. All right, these people, Magic Johnson has a statue. All right, these people did things on purpose and intentionally to help whatever organization they were a part of. If you didn't do that, you don't get a statue. You don't get a statue if you didn't do it on purpose. If you did something by accident, you get a statue. Like, what? If I go outside right now and I get hit by a car by a drunk driver, and knock on wood that doesn't happen, they shouldn't build a statue for me to represent the awareness of drunk driving, because I didn't do that on purpose. Like, they don't build a statue for that. All right, we're gonna sue the person who was driving, and we're gonna get all the money out of the insurance to go to my family. But I'll get a statue for that. I didn't do it on purpose. That's ridiculous. So the thing about the black community, and this is the biggest thing, and of course it doesn't apply to all black people. It doesn't apply to me. But in the black community, we just don't want to hold ourselves accountable. It's always blaming someone other than ourselves. And here's the problem with pointing the finger to any group outside of ourselves whenever there's a problem inside the community, is that you can't fix what you don't take ownership of. You have no power over something that you will not own. The first step in fixing the problem is you got to take ownership of the problem. When you take ownership of the problem, now you have the power and the responsibility to do something about it. Responsibility means your ability to respond. If you give up responsibility and you give up ownership, that means you can't respond. That means someone else has to do something about the situation. And if that someone else doesn't do what you want them to do, or they don't do it at all, or they don't do anything, or they just decide we're not going to do it, or they delay, or they do something different than what you want them to do, now you got the same problem, but because you don't have ownership, you can't fix it. So now the same problem just keeps perpetuating itself because no one wants to take ownership of the problem. And this is one of the biggest problems in the black community. People do not want to take ownership. It's all about blaming the system, blaming the government, blaming the history of America. And listen, are some of the systems screwed up? Yes. I've given entire lives 1 to 2 hours talking about how many systems in America are screwed up. And does that affect black people? Yes, it does. Are there some white people who are bad, or cops who are bad, or in the past who are bad? Yes. All right, I am acknowledging that as well. And is the government completely efficient and effective at doing things? No. All right. I acknowledge all of these things. Guess what? I'm also black. And with all of that being said, the best chance that I have of making change in my personal situation, my life, or anything else is taking more ownership over the situation. Why? Because that gives me power to do something about it. Anything I don't take ownership over, I have no power to do anything about, and I am subject to the decisions of other people. I don't like being subject to other people's decisions. That's why I'm an entrepreneur. I don't want other people's decisions determining my outcomes. I don't know about the rest of you. That's the way I like to look at things. And the race hustlers, their whole business is the opposite of what I just described. The race hustlers' whole business is to get you excited about how you as a black person is the victim of something that is outside of your control. And all we need to do is make more noise about that thing outside of your control so that you don't have to take ownership of it. And we can kind of guilt or shame or force them, whoever they are, into doing something about the situation. Let me ask a question. Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson have been around for 50 years. How has that worked out? Has it produced a result? Al and Jesse have been around 50 years. Now, there's a whole new wave of race hustlers in the last 10 years or so, but they've been around for a long time doing this. This ain't new. Has it produced a result? Again, has it produced a result? Hasn't produced anything. And here's the problem. When you, again, do not take ownership over a situation. Taking ownership over a situation does not mean you are at fault for the situation. Taking ownership over a situation does not mean you are at fault. It just means you are taking responsibility, because now, again, that gives you the power to change it. When I take my son on a walk, he's 2 years old. Sometimes I take them on a walk that's like a mile long. And y'all see how I'm dressed. I live in Miami. Y'all know how hot it gets in Miami? In the middle of June or July, I'm taking my son on a walk. It's like a mile long. I'm already hot just walking by myself with a suit on. He'll stop walking and say, carry me. And I absolutely don't want to carry him because it's going to make me even more hot to carry a 30 or 40 pound kid through Miami with the sun beating down on me with a damn suit on. But if I want to get back home, I have a better chance of getting back home sooner rather than later if I take ownership over the situation and pick the damn kid up and carry him than if I wait for him to feel like walking again. Do you understand? That's taking ownership over the situation. Not my fault that he doesn't want to walk. I can walk. He knows how to walk. He doesn't always feel like walking. But if I take ownership over the situation and say, okay, what's more important here? Me making him walk or me getting back into the house? What's more important is me getting back into the house. So I will pick him up and carry him until he feels like walking again so that I can get back into the house. Why? Because the most important consideration is I want to get back in the house, not making him do something that he doesn't feel like doing. He's only 2 years old. Who has more power here, me or him? Everybody understand? That's what it means to take ownership over a situation. Even if it's somebody else's fault, it's your responsibility. That's the mindset of a leader. Mindset of a leader is that even if it's someone else's fault that you're in a certain circumstance, you take ownership over it because now you can do something about it because you took ownership. No ownership, no power. Any of you wants more power in your life, you must take ownership. Last point. And I already told you how BLM is not really about helping blacks. It's about getting the attention of anyone outside of black people, let's just say white people, to further the hustle of the people who came up with the idea. And again, I'm not knocking this idea. This is a great idea. As far as it being a business, and as far as it being a hustle, and as far as it being a money-making opportunity, it was a great idea. BLM, race hustling, all these things I've been talking about, these are great ideas, great business ideas. I would never have done these myself, but I have to commend these people for coming up with the idea because it is making them money. It is helping them draw attention and be successful. However you measure, if you measure success by making money and having attention, they have done it. We can't not, even if you're not a fan, like I'm not a fan, we can't act like that didn't happen. All right. So even if someone's your worst enemy, if they make a good point, it's still a good point. If they do something that works, you can still acknowledge, oh, damn, that worked. I wouldn't do that, but I get that it worked. I have people who I know, people who I had met, shook their hands, who I see them go on the internet and they post some race hustling type of thing. Hey, look at this thing that happened to me. Look at what this cop did to me. And they'll post it on their social media and they'll get a ton of attention. It'll go viral. And I'm looking at it like, I know this person. I like this person. I respect this person. I would never do what they did, but I can't front and act like that didn't work to get them a lot of attention and a whole lot of new followers and likes and whatever it is they're trying to gain from it. So even when someone does something you disagree with, you can still acknowledge that, damn, that worked. All right. So all of us got to be able to do that. That takes a certain level of maturity. So all that said, let me get to comments. Let's go over. I went on many tangents while I was talking here, but here's the general points that I made here today. Biggest issues for Black Americans is the dismantling of the Black family or the fact that we don't have intact nuclear families. That means mom, dad, and the kid that mom and dad made, not stepdad, stepmom, mom, dad, and the kid that mom and dad made. Number two, BLM has not been about Black people. It's allegedly about Black lives, but they only show up when they can blame a white person. Number three, BLM accomplished nothing in 10 years. You can't name one thing they've accomplished except they helped that cop in Minneapolis go to jail. They did help that. Number four, BLM only loves dead Black people. Name one known Black person who's alive that BLM helped promote. You can't name one. Number five, Black accountability. We do not have accountability in our communities. BLM only exacerbated this issue. And number six, I already said BLM is not about helping Blacks. It's about getting the attention of white people and basically shaming white people into giving handouts, donations, attention, etc., to them, which they have done very successfully. Okay, they've done that successfully. We can't knock that. So I'm gonna start over on YouTube with the comments. KE said, "Bro, you be grinding." LOL. You're right. I do be grinding. You're right about that. Thank you. O-Dog said, "Greatest lie I ever sold." That's one of them. Absolutely. John Public. I don't know what you were referring to when you said that. TJ Matto said, "You can't miss that race hustling fool, Al Sharpton." Yeah, I mentioned Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton is the godfather. He and Jesse are the godfathers of race hustling. I think Al, I guess you got to give him the title because Jesse's a little bit older, I think, or he's not as active. Al Sharpton is still out here. Al Sharpton did lose a lot of weight, so I'll give him credit for that. Shout out to Al Sharpton for losing weight because Al Sharpton used to be fat. Y'all go see pictures of Al Sharpton from back in the day. He used to be like the size of somebody who's pretty big. He used to be like the size of Roland Martin, but now he's like skinny, like Barack Obama. So shout out to Al for losing that weight. If he did it the right way. Hopefully he didn't do it through the doctor. He did it through actually going to the gym. Now, I don't know. Oh, the name of the doc. Oh, so O-Dog got it. So O-Dog on YouTube got us. The name of the Candace Owens documentary is The Greatest Lie Ever Sold. Brittany, can you put that in the comments here? The Greatest Lie Ever Sold is the name of the documentary that Candace Owens did. Y'all can find that. I believe it's on Daily Wire behind the paywall. A couple of you got it. Ryan had it as well. West Burns says, look at the circumstances, though. It's generational trauma. What are you referring to, West? Malcolm said, please do a video and analysis about why men should have street smarts in their own lives, if you don't mind. Okay, it's an interesting topic. There's probably people out there who have talked about it in more depth than I would. I haven't never really thought about that subject, but it's a good question. Why men should have street smarts. And it depends on how you define street smarts as well. But maybe I would define it if I did that. Good suggestion, Malcolm. O-Dog said, that's why Michael Jordan was great. He took ownership over the shortcomings of his team and did what it took to overcome. Yes, exactly. Sports is a good example of these things because it's so clear. And outside of sports, it's harder because you got all smaller things that we can't always see. West says the black community problems run deeper than getting out of your own way. I 100% agree, West. I agree with that. But at the same time, our lack of internal accountability is a big issue as far as I'm concerned. You may put them in a different order than I do, and you have a right to do that. But I say the second biggest issue is a lack of internal accountability. We point to people outside of ourselves, and we are influenced by people who do it as well. Brandon said, I hope you hear the hypocrisy in the women that say they don't need a man. Well, they may feel that way until or unless there's a challenging situation. So some of them may go their whole lives and maybe get validation of that. Soul Art said, I hope Chauvin gets out. Well, we'll see. He's going to have to go through the court system to get out. I think his sentence was, how many years did he get? I think he got like 20 years. So he ain't getting out on that. He would have to go through the court system. So we'll see if he gets out. But he has to appeal and all that, which he has a legal right to do. Brandon said, you remember Jadakiss said, why dead rappers get better promotion? Yeah, I remember that line. Darius said, I agree with BLM. You remember BLM was a statement that people capitalize on. No, it was a whole organization. It wasn't just a statement. Brandon said, I do feel many white people do rep BLM, don't have your back when something really counts and you wanted their help. So I get what Kanye said. Don't need a white person telling my life. Yes, exactly. It was one of the reasons why he kind of trashed it a lot. Darius said, charity organizations get caught stealing. BLM doesn't represent the movement. Oh, sure they do. They created the movement. You can't divorce them from the movement. They created it. It wouldn't be a movement. It wasn't for them. So that I reject that. People care about Floyd because how he passed. No, bullshit. Everyone watched it, was brought up emotions. Many people have uncles, cousins that are like Mr. Floyd. No, they cared about him because he passed at the hands of a white cop. There are Mr. Floyds who die at the hands of black people every day. All right, name one. None of us can name any because none of them made the news. And again, there are many more black people who die at the hands of black people every day than ever from a white person, specifically a cop. But we don't know their names because it's not news and nobody gives a damn when it happens. So no. King Co said police funding needs reform, reallocate the funds, and the criminal justice system create a more efficient system that actually addresses limiting crime, not just punishing after the fact. Well, how do you do that? That's a big had to be a whole program like Project 2025 to explain how exactly that would happen. How would you do that? And it starts with, again, the way people are raised. If someone's a criminal and they're 21, it's too late. They already are who they are. That's why 2-parent homes matter so much, King Co. I'm going to come to TikTok in a second for the comments. Darius said, man, women don't specifically request male police officers. I want you to get the spirit of my point, not the letter of the point. Of course, you don't call and say, hey, I want a man cop. That's not a thing. What I'm saying is if a woman's by herself and a man is attacking her, she calls a cop. Does she want a woman cop to show up or a man cop? That's the point. Please don't dissect what I'm saying literally. Someone says, I'm all for police, but why would you want them to have immunity? I never said that. Straw man question. Brandon said, can we get blacks immunity with the no snitching rule when they do something crazy to another black man? No snitching applies if you're in the streets. If you're not in the streets, then no snitching does not apply to you. That only is for people who are active in the streets. So if you're not in the streets, then there's no such thing as no snitching. A civilian should snitch. It's not even snitching. You're just doing your job as a civilian. King Co said, they're not above the law. They're subject to the same judgment we are. Giving police immunity is insane. LOL. Why are y'all saying that? I never said anything about that. I didn't even mention the word. Dapper account says, can we as a group of men police our own communities? Yes, there are communities that do get policed by the men within them. Not every community, but yes, there are communities that are just like that. All right, I'm on TikTok now. You got comments, go ahead and post it. Giacomo Knox mentioned the fall in Minneapolis. Yes, that's free. I still got that. I got to watch that. I did watch it. Did I watch it? I think I did watch it because it was on the woman who did that. I believe she was on the Megyn Kelly show back when it came out. So I did see that. The fall of Minneapolis is all about the Floyd situation. So y'all should watch that. If y'all didn't see that, go watch that. It's on YouTube for free. And Brittany, you want to pin a comment? Go ahead and pin it. I'm looking at TikTok now. So you got something to go ahead and post it. Cassandra said they need to lionize problematic people. That significant portion of people will be against them. Maybe. It sounds good in theory. Giacomo said limousine liberals never set foot in the hood. Yes, that's correct. Like somebody who just ran for president, whose name I'm not going to say. TikTok doesn't really like when I mention this person too much. Oh, look, y'all said my sister thinks she is open-minded because once a year she rides the subway. Where does she live? Where does your sister live? Oh, look, y'all. It's an interesting comment. They don't have subways here in Miami. They can't build anything underground because there's water underneath the ground. Stacy said they only care about their maids and gardeners. Ranking Joe said, you're scared. Your talking points are another scare tactic. I'm scared? Scared of what? What do you mean? That's an interesting comment, but I don't know what you're talking about. Life according to Cat said, I'm from the hood. They said going to school or working is acting white. Well, back in the days, yes, that was a thing. Back in the 90s, yes. If you're black or you're from the hood, back in the 90s, if you did good in school, your classmates might make fun of you. Like, why are you doing good in school? Like, you're trying to be white. Traditional all day says, I missed that one. Giacomo says, every day we lose thousands of black people to AB. What does that mean? But no one wants to talk about it. What's AB? I don't know what AB is. Let's see. So sometimes when these comments come in, they start jumping. So sometimes I might miss your comment. If you want me to see it, just post it again, but don't spam it. And Brittany is going to post our best comments, the ones she wants me to see. She'll pin them. Thank you, Brittany. Shout out to Brittany, who's moderating here. Chosen said, why do we allow ourselves to be used as puppets for a puppet master? Well, if people actually saw themselves that way, they wouldn't allow it. I don't think people see it that way. Chosen, who is the puppet master to whom you are referring? Who are you talking about? Quinn says defunding the police and funding the education system reduces crime. I would disagree with that because I'm not a fan of the education system. I wouldn't put more money into something that doesn't work. What we need is two-parent homes. That is even before school. Because if you don't have two-parent homes, it doesn't matter what you put in education. Kids do better in school when they have two parents at home. The school is not there to fix what's not happening at home. If you have two parents at home and a strong home system, you could send your kid to a trash school and the kid will still come out great because the parents are more important than the school. Ken says the black community disengages former residents that no longer live there. They invalidate us. I understand that, Ken. I understand that can happen, but I don't live in the hood anymore, but I can go back to where I come from and people still know me. They know me because I was outside when I was there. And people still know me there. And like when I go back to where my parents live, my mom tells me, like when she's outside, I'm walking the dogs, people still ask her about me because they remember me because I was outside when I was there. Traditional all day says, Dre, you give an education class every morning. Thank you. So I should work in the education system. I would never, but I get my education through here. Oh, look, y'all say you're so hydrated. I need to get some water. Thank you. I drink a lot of water. I think I'm on liter number. I work out first thing in the morning. So I usually have 5 liters in by the time I start this. This will be liter number 6 when I finish this bottle. That'd be 6 liters. I try to get in at least like 8 per day. But the thing is, you're going to drink that much water. You got to drink it early in the day because if you drink a lot of water late in the day, you're going to get up to go to the bathroom while you're sleeping like 3 or 4 times. So I try to stop drinking water by like 2, 3 o'clock. Janaya Khan, I don't even know who that is, but I believe you. Let's see. Stacy said, you don't want to live where they refunded. Yes, you don't want to live in those places. That's correct. Jenna says, cops make less than teachers is maddening. Definitely not for defunding. Well, yeah, where you live, Jenna? Where are you talking? Because I've heard different. I've heard the cops make more than teachers in certain towns, but every town is different. So you're right. Early retiree said the police don't need more money than schools. I don't know if it's so much about need, how much money they need. It's because that just draws people to the job. I mean, police make good money. The police that I know of make actually good money. You can make six figures a year being a cop. It's a lot of work. You do long shifts, but you can make a good six figures being a cop, especially with the overtime and the like the details and all that stuff. Any cops in here or anyone who knows a cop want to disclose how much they told you they make? All lives matter. Why do you keep pushing this narrative? What narrative? I'm not giving you a narrative. I'm giving you my perspective on how things work. Or is that a narrative in itself? Early retiree says, quit being scary. Quinn says, I have a pistol permit. All right, great. Now, do you actually have a pistol? That's the next thing you need. Let's see. Who y'all going to call? Brittany said, who y'all going to call when someone breaks into your house? Right. If you're a female by yourself, who are you going to call? Of course, you got to call the cops. So defunding the police makes no sense. Jenna says, if no one wants to be cops, there will be none. Well, yeah, incentives. People respond to incentives. So if you offer someone a six-figure salary, they will go be a cop. Now, a lot of cops stopped wanting to be cops around that 2020 period because it seemed like a no-win situation. If you don't do anything, then you look bad by not doing your job, like when you see something happening. But if you do something and somebody ends up, unfortunately, like Mr. Floyd, then now you might end up like Derek Chauvin. So what do? It's like a no-win situation. Stacey said, I met the DA in Austin, Texas, and they made crime not prosecuted. Well, they did that in many towns that I heard about that. I saw it specifically in California, where they would say if you were to steal something from the store that was worth less than X amount of dollars, then they wouldn't take you to court. They wouldn't even go after you. And y'all saw it. We talked about this last week. Somebody walk into Walgreens, steal a bunch of stuff off the shelf, and just walk out, and the security guards are sitting there watching them walk out. The workers sitting there watching them walk out. They're filming them because they got it on camera. So they're filming them doing it and still don't do anything. And then the cops wouldn't go after them. And I don't know how you could live in a town where that's allowed. That's crazy. Stacey said, Dallas won't show up. You have to file it on the web. Yeah, that's crazy. All right. So the cops won't come. And okay, so they say in Dallas they're doing this. Okay, interesting. So I'm guessing Dallas is governed by the mayor in Dallas is what? Blue or red? Chateaubriand said, it does make me fearful most times. What were you referring to here? ASAP said, BLM encamped outside the police station. Yes, yeah, they did. In Minneapolis. Yes, they did. Chateau said, I'm too scared to call 911. Why? Why are you scared? Ryan says, cops aren't going to help you either. How so? Why do you believe that? User says the concept was to reallocate some funding that goes to police to community-based. Yeah, I understand. That's what it was. I don't agree with that concept. The most important thing we need are two-parent homes, was not about funding. That's not about funding. So this whole thing of defunding the police, refunding the police, allocate funds to education or communities, I reject all of that. The most important thing we need in places where people are wary and for whatever reason of the police is we need people to go back to having two-parent homes. We need the mother, the father, and the kids all in one house. That's what we need. That's not a money thing. That's if you want to call it morals, you want to call it principles, you want to call it the way people are raised, that's what we need. And that has nothing to do with where the money's going. Money could go to all the same places. We need people who are going to have kids to stay together and build a family together. Mother, father, kids. That's what we need. And you can have all the cops you want. You can have the communities. You can have the education system. Again, the cops can be not that good. The education system could be not that good. The communities can be not that good. But if you have two parents and the kids at home, those kids will end up being solid, upstanding individuals. Why? Because they have a mother and father at home setting the proper example. That's what we need in the community. It has nothing to do with money. Y'all saw Good Times with James and Florida Evans. All right, where were they living? All right, but those kids knew how to act. Now, you saw the Cosby Show. Now, the Cosby Show, they had money, right? One was a lawyer, one was a doctor, but they knew how to act. That's the kind of TV shows we used to watch. Now look at the TV shows we got. Now look at what we see in the media. So the shooting stopped momentarily when the police did their patrols, but there can't be always. Yeah, well, see, somebody loses their life, you might end up in a Floyd situation. That's the problem. Archer said, not all cops are good. Okay, I agree. Not everything is good. There's no profession where everybody's good. A user said, remember when they were saying to send social workers instead of police? Yes, I do remember them saying that, which was crazy. A ridiculous idea. And you notice that nobody did it, right? That didn't last. Early retirees said, you're the victim, brother. Are you talking to me? What are you referring to? Jenna said, no police or law, even non-criminals will act a fool. Exactly. If I knew they weren't police, I might steal something. Why not? Ain't nothing going to happen. All right, why pay for it when I can just steal it? If nothing's going to happen, I might as well. Now, if that business owner has, again, if they're a 2A card carrying member, then I might think twice. And see, that's when it becomes we're policing ourselves. So if you ain't willing to go there, then you want police. Stacey said, you'll be on the news for defending yourself. Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. Chosen said, what are you going to do when police are harassing and terrorizing your community? Well, police don't harass and terrorize my community. And I don't think police generally do that. I understand there are some communities where people feel like that's what's happening. At the same time, you could even be in one of those communities. If you have a 2-parent home and you are raised right, you won't be the one the police are bothering for the most part. Stacey says money is going to the welfare system, which promotes single mothers. That's a good point. I talked about that last week. That is true. Trill says Floyd was politically covered in the media. They didn't really care the narrative. Well, yeah, it was a story. Yes, the story drew a lot of attention, and the media is all about attention. So we got to remember that. G2 Smoke said Dallas mayor was liberal but switched to conservative in July. Meaning the same person switched or the mayor changed? They got voted out. What do you mean they switched? Like the person went from being a liberal to being a conservative, or is it a different person? Optimist says the whole black community doesn't have accountable leaders to raise accountable offspring. That's a good point. So the people that we look to for news and stories and guidance, the people that we look at on the internet and on TV, these folks, again, they're pushing this lack of accountability. So this is where you get the Ben Crumps, you get the Ibram X. Kendis, you get the Al Sharptons. Everything that they say is, well, it's something about the system or about white people that is causing our problems in our communities. But if you show up and you start telling people what to do to fix themselves, well, y'all saw what happened to Malcolm X, right? Y'all know the story of Malcolm X. There's a movie. I believe it's just called X by Spike Lee. This is back from the 90s. And you can find out, or you just read the story of what happened in Malcolm X's life. Now, he has an autobiography, but of course he couldn't tell the story of how he passed away. But Malcolm X, for the most part, Malcolm X was doing what these days I would call race hustling. Malcolm X was a street guy who ended up in the system for doing street stuff, bad things in the streets. He ended up getting into religion while he was incarcerated. He joins the nation. He gets into the nation, and he was for many years promoting to black people, your problem is based on white people. We need to separate from white people, not integrate, but separate from white people because white people are terrible, et cetera, et cetera. Malcolm preached that for many years. Then he went to Mecca. He went on a pilgrimage to Mecca, and he came across a bunch of other people with the same religion as him, but they were not all black people. They were fair-skinned people, black people, brown-skinned people. And he noticed, he said, oh, all of these people are practicing the same religion, and some of them look like the white people that I've been talking shit about in America. He came back to America and started telling the same people who he was demonizing white people to. He started telling them white people are not the problem. We can actually work with these people because what I saw when I was over in Mecca, and when he started telling black people that, they didn't like that he was saying that because he had conditioned them a different way, and they took care of Malcolm. And that was it for him. This is the problem in our community, that people have already been told so many negative things about white people that if you show up and try to tell them something different, then they don't want to hear it. So this is a cultural thing. So we got to uproot the people who have been talking the nonsense, and we got to raise a new generation of people talking the more logical and the thing that makes more sense. Let's just call it that thing that makes more sense. Jish O says, kind of like how you red pill grifters do the same. I'm not a red pill anything. And how am I grifting? What's the grift? Tell me the grift that I am doing right now. What is my grift? Please explain my grift. Expose me. What is my grift? Optimus says, control the controllable. That's right. Giacomo, appreciate it. Let's see. Is encouraged by some big businesses look at rap. Yes, correct. I am with that. I agree with that. Rashim Tony says, was Malcolm X telling the truth? Weren't Black Americans being oppressed? Well, it depends on who you ask. And you can look at any situation and say you're being oppressed. I could say right now I'm being oppressed by the government because I got to pay taxes. Technically, am I right? Technically, I could say I am. Now, was he telling the truth? I would say no. Was he stating a reality that some people could agree with? I would say yes. And these words matter. The truth means all the facts and all the reality in full context, Rasheen. And the full context is, yes, even though these things are happening that are bad for you and are hurting your situation, at the same time, you must still take ownership of the situation and be self-accountable. So it wasn't just the oppression. It was also, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to fix your situation, even though the situation may not be ideal for you? That was part of his message as well. And when he stopped bashing white people, his own people didn't like hearing that. And that's what ended up happening. Someone said, what about I don't know if I can say that word, ANTIFA takeover? What about them? And those people mostly ain't Black. So that ain't really the topic here today. Someone said, is that my book? Yes. I don't know which one you're looking at, but yes, the books you can see are my books. I have other books that are not my books, but the ones you can see, these are all mine. Archer said tax receipts will tell. Yeah, well, that's what Candace did. She went and got the tax document because they are a nonprofit, but they took a lot of money. And she went and got the tax documents. Traditional said, Dre is right on many levels. Thank you. Let's see. BLM created a movement. Melanie says this. And money, and they did not contribute to their cause, only to their deep pocket. Well, they contributed to some causes, just not the ones that you think they contributed to. They did contribute to some causes, Melanie, just not the ones you thought. Again, they didn't build a community center to help the hood. They gave money to other places. So Brittany posted that Greatest Lie Ever Sold was the name of that Candace documentary also. Someone said that ANTI group infiltrated BLM. Yes, I've heard that. I'll give you that point. So we are up to 16,000 likes. Thank you, Brittany, for promoting and telling everybody to tap the screen. So BLM drank champagne. They probably did. I will take a couple more comments and then we'll wrap this up, folks. I do these lives Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern, as long as we got internet, as long as everything's working, 8 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. So if y'all like this, be here. I do these Monday through Friday on 7 different platforms. So whatever platform allows live streaming, I got it. YouTube, Rumble, X, TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm on all of them. So just look me up and I'm easy to find. So Floyd had, we know Floyd had some substances in his system. Everybody knows that he had the substances in his system. And the medical examiner, again, watch that documentary about Floyd. And I'd be careful what I say here, because at first the examiner was saying that there was no foul play that caused his death. Then he got a visit from the FBI, and then he changed what his report said. That happened. And again, it's in the documentary. So watch the documentary and draw your own conclusions. I got to be careful what I talk about here, because when I first started talking about this topic, TikTok started wagging their finger at me. What is AB, Giacomo? You used that phrase, AB. What is that? Okay. And thanks to the people who just started following me, those of you who are new over here. TikTok's my fastest growing platform. It's not my biggest one, but it's my fastest growing one. So we're going to see if we can get to 10K followers by the end of the year. I'm closing in on 8K. We'll see if we can get to 10K by the end of the year. That might be a large order. I might have to come up with a live that goes viral somehow. I'm not sure if I can go viral on TikTok. I'm going to say the wrong thing. They're going to kick me off. Oh, Giacomo said, that's okay. Yes, that's correct as well. That is also correct. I talked about that a lot when I was talking about the election. So yes, Giacomo, you're right about that. Now we said, why are we saying acting white? We started reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's a deeper subject that I'm not going to get into here today. I get your point though, Nelly. Oh, look, said my sister lives in Brooklyn. Oh, okay. That makes sense. So how'd she get to work? Was she driving? Walking? In New York, you take the train everywhere. Shout out to New York. I like New York in the summertime, not in the winter. I'm from Philadelphia. I don't like anywhere that is cold. I like heat, even though I'm wearing a suit. I deal with the sweating. All right, a couple more comments, folks, then we'll wrap this up. Mama T says, I love an educated and handsome man. Thanks for the work you do. Thank you for the compliment. Thank you, Mama T. Jessica said, "Do your mother still live in the hood?" Well, where I come from is not. If I say the hood, it ain't the hood. It ain't like that. Both of my parents still live in the place that I come from. I'm from I would call it a lower middle class neighborhood, but it's not like you're worrying if you're going to make it back home if you walk around the block. It's not that kind of neighborhood, but it is lower middle class. But when you say the hood, that gives a different visual that most people get from that. And it's not that. If you saw the street that I come from, you wouldn't call it that. So I don't know what this question is. Mustang boss lady. What does that mean about being a judge? Mel said, depends on where you are. That's correct. Sandman said, family court system. I know some people in the family court system. Not a place you want to be. All right. None of you want to end up in family court. If you have a child with someone that you're not going to be with, y'all sit down and work that out. All right. Do not go to family court. You do not want to be in family court. You don't want to be dealing with child protective services either. Sandman is 100% right about that one. Any of you have a child with someone that you're not with, please work it out. All right. Call a coach, call a therapist, call a mediator, call Dr. Phil. Do anything other than do not get in the court system with your kids. Do not. Now, if I can give any of you one piece of advice, if you are a single parent or you have a child and you're not with the mother or the father, do not take that to family court. That is not the place you want to be. Court fees, lawyer fees, going back and forth to court and dealing with judges and lawyers. And no. You do not want that. And I know people who've been in family court, their kids are in their teens, 15, 16-year-old kids still going to family court. Do not do it. I know people who make 6-7 figures a year getting drained by court because they can't come to an agreement with the father or the mother of their child. Do not go to family court. Do not end them in court. Y'all could work that out. All right. If y'all could get along well enough to have sex and have a kid, y'all get along well enough to figure out the kid's situation. That's what I got to say. All right. Come hire me for a consult before you go to court. All right. Do not do that. Traditional says, look up the starting salaries for cops in Nassau County. What is it? Mel said, I got multiple firearms. All right, good. Pieces King said, Trump can't do that because it's a state level case, not a federal case. So he can't do that. He can't pardon anybody. S. Dot said, major key to public service is wanting to serve. That's correct. You can pay people, but you can't force service. That is 100% accurate, S. Dot. You're right about that. Dallas mayor was liberal but switched to conservative. Yeah, I was asking, is that the same person? Families interact with other families and build a real community. Yes, but there has to be a family. All right, for my family to interact with your family, we both got to have a family. So that's the issue. So the issue is we don't have it. All right, so I'm not saying this is everywhere. All right, there are towns where there are family, back to back all around, but there are other towns where there are not. So they shut down entire shopping areas because of the theft. That's also correct. I've seen that and heard about it. You're correct about that. All right, so we made it through this live here today. Congratulations to me. We made it through this live, even though TikTok gave me a couple warnings. I'll find out more about those maybe later on. Oh, same person switch parties? That's interesting. I didn't know about that. In Dallas, Live Free said, be careful. That's my hero. Who are you talking about? Melanie said, welfare and aid is being used as a form of career rather than what it was designed. That's correct. I think it started with positive intentions, but ended up going bad. I believe they meant to do it. S. Dot said, like Roland Martin grift. Yeah, Roland Martin. This is business. He's hustling. I wouldn't even call it a grift because a grift means you're like dishonest. I don't think he's dishonest. I think he really believes the things that he's saying. So that's why I call them race hustlers rather than call them grifters. People throw that term around grift a lot these days. People call me a grifter when I say something that they don't like. But what am I grifting? What's my grift? I don't make any money by talking about politics. So how am I grifting? If I am grifting, please tell me where the money's at. So we're all being oppressed by taxes. Y'all know there used to not be any taxes. There used to not be income taxes. That wasn't a thing. It started as a tax on people who made a certain amount. Then they just slowly expanded it, and now we all pay. That was not a thing. Stacey said Texas has grifters in both parties. Yes, that was interesting what people were saying about Dallas and Austin because I know Texas is a red state, but many cities tend to be blue. So I get it. 90,000 be a cop in Nassau County, New York. Now that's a good job. That's a good job. What's my topic tomorrow? Let me see. What am I going to talk about tomorrow? I don't know. Actually, we're going to go back to we're going to talk about the left. We're going to talk about the left. Yeah, we're going to talk about the left. Learning points for the left. So the left, meaning the Democratic Party, there's some things that they should learn from what's happened this year. And I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. And we'll see how far we get. We'll see how far we get. We got to watch out for the warnings on TikTok. But tomorrow, that's what we're going to talk about, what the left must learn, unless I come up with another topic. But that is coming. Nicole, that's the answer to that question. All right, couple more comments, and then we will wrap this up. Anything else I need to address? Yeah, family court is worse than criminal court. I agree with that one. None of you want to be in family court. Have I emphasized that enough? Do not get in family court. Chosen said, what were my thoughts when I saw the Floyd video, the viral video? Because that video was only like 2 minutes, like the first one that came out that day. I'll answer this question, then we'll wrap up. First thing I said was I need to see the whole video. That's the first thing I said. And you can find my live from that day that's still on YouTube to this day. I said the first thing I need is to see the whole video. I know that's not the whole video because when they showed the video, already the guy was on the ground. Floyd was on the ground. The cop was on top of him. I said, what happened before that? What happened after that? I need to see the whole video. And the full video, from the time the cops show up to the little store, the corner store, and then they walk over to Floyd in the car and start talking to him, that whole video is about 30 minutes long. The viral video was 1 minute long. And all of you got to be very careful when you see a viral video that's a minute long. So first thing I said, and I said this while I was talking on my live, I said, I got to see the whole video before I react to this. First thing I said. And that should be your immediate response. Anything comes up viral on social media. Do I think the officer was justified? All right, let me answer that question. I got to be careful how I talk about this. It was in the handbook for police officers in his city to do the thing that he did. It was in the handbook. Then when they went to court, they brought up a couple of people who are allegedly experts in what's in the handbook, and they said it's not in the handbook. All right, that happened. Again, watch the documentary. They showed that. They showed that it was in the handbook. Then when they went to court, the expert said it's not in the handbook. And then the guy, the defendant, he said, this is how I was trained to do it. If something happens to someone, you're supposed to do this, then this, then this, which is what he did. Because Floyd asked to go on the ground, by the way. They didn't put him. He asked to be put on the ground. And then the boss, that cop's boss, Chauvin's boss, got put on the stand. And they said, is this part of the training? As he said it is. And the boss said, no, it's not part of the training. So that's my response to that question. That's what they said. They said, is that part of the training? The boss said it's not part of the training. They said, is that in the handbook? The expert said it's not in the handbook, but then they have people with the handbook that shows it is in the handbook. So this became a he said, she said thing, and the judge allowed it. So justified is a interesting term to use here. It's not about it being justified because justified is defined by the court. So according to the court, it was not justified. That's why he got convicted. So what I think is that the stories got switched. I do believe the stories got switched. Now, who was telling the truth and who wasn't, we don't know. Because I'm not a cop. I don't work in Minneapolis. But this is what is shown. Watch the documentary. One person saying this, the other person gets on the stand and says that. So which one is it? And Mel said his mother has a handbook. Yes, it's in the documentary. So Mel got Mel's comment right there is accurate. Watch it and you see for yourself. Draw your own conclusions, ladies and gentlemen. Draw your own conclusions. But you got to get all the information to draw a conclusion. Many of you have only heard half the story. You didn't hear the other half of the story. And there's only one truth. There's different sides to stories, but there's only one truth. So you got to get all the information and then you decide what's true and what's not true. Issue is in the world that we live in today is that people can argue over what's true and what's not. And we can never know for sure because everybody has their own version. Appreciate it, Jeffrey. Jenna said he got convicted for what did he get convicted for? Somebody answered that. I believe it was manslaughter or was it second degree? I think it was second degree, either the M word or manslaughter, the other M word. I think it was second degree he got convicted of. So Chosen says, please provide a clear answer. Do you think it was justified? I gave you a clear answer. What does a clear answer mean? The answer that you want? You want a yes or a no? I just told you why it's not that simple because, again, the court, the word justified is defined by the courts, not by us. You don't define justified. I don't define justified. The court defines what is justified and what is not. Because if the court said he was justified, he'd be free. If the court said he's not justified, he gets incarcerated. Where is he now? He's locked up. So that means the court said, no, he was not justified. That's the reason why they have trials to decide, was your action justified? Was it not? That's the answer to the question. Dancing G said, Dancing Puppy says 23 people passed away during the riots. Were those justified? Again, I don't know if you're saying that as a response to the other question being asked, but I have no answer to that if you're asking me. Mel said the trial was a farce. Some say. Well, that's the reason why we have the system. You may not like the system, but the way the system works is if you don't like the outcome that happened at court, you can appeal and you can try again. So we'll see if that happens, but it takes a long time. Y'all know. Name of the documentary. There are two that I mentioned here today. All right, this is the last thing I'm going to answer. Vanessa's question. The Greatest Lie Ever Sold is the BLM documentary, which you all should watch. The Burning in Minneapolis is the George Floyd documentary that you all should watch. That's two different documentaries. Miss Bray said he was released. Was he? I didn't hear that. I didn't hear he was released. If that's news to me, if that happened. All that said, folks, 8 a.m. Eastern, I do these lives Monday through Friday most of the time, as long as I'm not banned on any app, as long as my Wi-Fi works, which is what we expect. And workonyourgameuniversity.com. If you like to work with me directly, I think all of you have a pretty good feel for my style and how I communicate. We work with people on their mindset, on their businesses, on their entrepreneurship, on building themselves up personally and professionally. That's workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link is in my bio wherever you are watching me. Make sure you follow me on more than one platform. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, Rumble, and YouTube. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can see the back catalog of anything I tell you I talked about before. It's all on YouTube. I got like 13,000 videos, literally 13,000 videos on YouTube. Not all of them will be of your interest because I used to play basketball. So half of them are basketball from back in the day. The other half are more like this, what y'all hear today. So hit me in a DM. You got any questions or comments that I didn't answer here today, or you got something you want to ask of me directly, business related. My assistant is always watching the DMs, and we will get back to you on any app. I need to go to the bathroom as usual. All right. Appreciate Brittany for moderating. Everybody shout out Brittany for moderating the comments here today. She's been helping me out for the last couple of weeks, and hopefully she sticks around over on YouTube. Appreciate you all as well. Someone said, well, I'll drop the link so people can talk to me. The link, I'll put it over on YouTube. I can drop the link on YouTube. So if you want to check out our program, you can just go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. YouTube, I just dropped that link. Instagram, y'all can see the link. Rumble and X. Actually, I didn't even check Rumble and X and make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, so I got everything on those apps, and I think we got it, everybody. Someone said hourly or subscription. What are you referring to, Jenna? Are you referring to my university? I don't do hourly, or we have subscription. We have programs. We have a whole program. So we have year-long programs. We got monthly programs. We got all types of stuff. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Link is down below or in my bio, or down below in the description. It's different on every app. We will see you all tomorrow. Again, barring any unforeseen circumstances, tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern. Everybody have a great day. Work on your game. We're out of here.